The mind that never stops. Have you ever gone to bed exhausted, but the moment you close your eyes, your mind suddenly becomes louder? You replay an old conversation. You imagine something going wrong tomorrow. You think about what someone meant by their words. You question decisions you already made. And just when you think you've finally reached the end of the thought, another one appears. This is the exhausting cycle of overthinking. The problem isn't that you think too much simply because you have a busy mind. Thinking is one of the greatest abilities of the human brain. The problem begins when thinking stops helping you solve problems and starts repeatedly feeding fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Overthinking and Mental Peace explores a powerful question. Why can't we simply switch our brains off? The answer is important because peace doesn't come from having an empty mind. It comes from learning how to stop fighting every thought that enters it. 1. Your brain isn't designed to be silent. The first thing to understand is that your brain is not malfunctioning simply because thoughts keep appearing. The human mind constantly predicts, remembers, compares, evaluates, and prepares. Your brain is essentially trying to answer, what happened? What is happening? What might happen next? This ability helped humans survive. If something dangerous happened yesterday, remembering it could help you avoid the same danger tomorrow. If something uncertain is coming, imagining possible outcomes can help you prepare. So thinking itself isn't the enemy. The problem occurs when the brain continues analyzing a problem that has no immediate solution. You move from, what can I do about this? To, what if something goes wrong? Then, what if I made the wrong decision? Then, what if everything gets worse? The brain keeps searching for certainty. But certainty is often impossible. And that's where overthinking begins. 2. Thinking versus overthinking. There is an important difference between productive thinking and overthinking. Productive thinking moves toward an answer. Overthinking moves in circles. Imagine you have an important exam. Productive thinking says, I have 3 chapters left. I'll study chapter 1 tonight and chapter 2 tomorrow. The thought leads to action. Overthinking sounds different. What if I fail? What will everyone think? What if I can't remember anything? What if my future is affected? What if I disappoint my family? What if something else goes wrong? Notice the difference. The first process creates a plan. The second creates more questions. A useful rule is, if thinking repeatedly produces fear but no meaningful action, you're probably no longer solving the problem. You're feeding the loop. 3. Why uncertainty creates so much anxiety. One of the biggest causes of overthinking is uncertainty. The human brain doesn't particularly enjoy not knowing. When something is uncertain, the mind tries to fill the gap. And when there isn't enough information, imagination often fills it with possibilities. That's why waiting for an important result can feel worse than receiving the result itself. While waiting, your mind can create hundreds of scenarios. Maybe everything will be fine. Maybe everything will go wrong. Maybe something unexpected will happen. The brain keeps producing possibilities because it believes that more thinking will eventually create certainty. But thinking cannot guarantee the future. This leads to a crucial lesson. Peace requires learning to tolerate uncertainty. You don't need to know exactly what tomorrow will bring to be okay today. 4. The thought is not the fact. One of the most important skills for mental peace is learning to separate thoughts from reality. Your mind can produce a thought such as, I'm going to fail, but that is a prediction, not a fact. It can say, they probably don't like me. That's an interpretation, not proof. It can say, something terrible is going to happen. That's a possibility, not a certainty. When you automatically believe every thought, your emotions begin reacting to imagination as though it were reality. Instead, try changing the language. Don't say, this will happen. Say, I'm having the thought that this might happen. That small change creates psychological distance. You are no longer inside the thought. You are observing it. 5. Why fighting thoughts makes them louder. Here's a strange paradox of the mind. The harder you try not to think about something, the more noticeable it can become. Tell yourself, don't think about it. And suddenly you're checking whether you're thinking about it. You try to force your mind to become completely silent. The silence doesn't come. Then you become frustrated. Then you think about the fact that you're thinking. Now you're overthinking. Instead of fighting thoughts, learn to let them pass. Imagine sitting beside a road. Cars pass. You don't chase every car. You don't try to stop every car. You simply watch them move away. Thoughts can work the same way. A thought doesn't require your participation. 6. The power of naming what you're experiencing when your mind becomes overwhelmed. Give the experience a name. Instead of, "My life is falling apart," try, "I'm experiencing anxiety." Instead of, "I can't control my thoughts," try, "My mind is currently producing a lot of thoughts." Instead of, "Something is definitely wrong," try, "I feel uncertain right now." This doesn't magically remove difficult emotions, but it creates separation between you and what you're experiencing. You are not your anxiety. You are not every thought that appears. You are the person noticing those experiences. That distinction can be incredibly powerful. 7. The past is finished, but the brain keeps revisiting it. Another major source of overthinking is the past. You remember something embarrassing, a conversation you wish had gone differently, a mistake you made, something you should have said, something you wish you hadn't said. And the mind asks, "Why did I do that? What if I had responded differently? What were they thinking? If only I had known then what I know now." The problem is that the past cannot be edited through mental repetition. Reflection can teach you something. Rumination simply replays the pain. Ask yourself, is there something I can learn from this? If yes, learn it. Then ask, is there something I can do about it now? If yes, act. If neither is possible, continuing to replay the event may only keep you emotionally attached to something that has already ended. 8. The future doesn't need to be solved tonight. The opposite of past-based rumination is future-based anxiety. The mind jumps ahead. What if I fail? What if I lose this opportunity? What if people reject me? What if my plans don't work? Preparing for the future is useful. Trying to mentally experience every possible disaster before it happens is exhausting. A better question is, what is actually required from me today? Not next year. Not 5 years from now. Today. Maybe today's responsibility is studying one chapter, making one phone call, finishing one task, having one difficult conversation, taking one step. You don't have to solve your entire future in one evening. You only have to handle the next meaningful step. 9. Control what you can control. Mental peace becomes easier when you divide life into 2 categories. What you can control: your actions, your effort, your preparation, your response, your habits, your boundaries, your attention. What you cannot fully control: other people's opinions, other people's behavior, the past, unexpected events, the exact outcome of every situation, the future. Overthinking often happens when we spend enormous mental energy trying to control the second category. A powerful daily question is this within my control? If it is, take responsibility. If it isn't, practice acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means refusing to waste energy fighting reality. 10. Anxiety wants certainty. Life requires courage. Anxiety often says, don't move until you're completely certain. But complete certainty rarely exists. You may never know whether a decision will work perfectly. You may never know exactly how another person feels. You may never know what tomorrow will bring. If you wait for complete certainty before acting, you may remain stuck indefinitely. Mental strength isn't having zero fear. It's being able to move forward while uncertainty exists. Courage is not the absence of anxious thoughts. It's refusing to let those thoughts make every decision for you. 11. Your body can influence your mind. Mental peace isn't only about changing thoughts. Your physical state matters too. Poor sleep, constant stimulation, inactivity, prolonged stress, and an unhealthy routine can make emotional regulation more difficult. Sometimes the mind feels chaotic because the body is exhausted. That is why simple habits matter. Regular sleep, physical movement, time outdoors, healthy meals, breathing slowly, taking breaks from screens, meaningful social connection. These things aren't glamorous. But mental health is often built through ordinary habits repeated consistently. 12. The importance of creating mental space. Modern life rarely gives the brain enough silence. Notifications, messages, short videos, news, music, conversations, endless scrolling. The moment you're bored, something is available to entertain you. But constant stimulation can make stillness uncomfortable. Try creating periods where you don't consume anything. Take a walk without constantly checking your phone.
Sit quietly.
Write your thoughts down. Look outside. Pray or reflect. Allow yourself to experience boredom. At first, your mind may become louder. That's okay. You are not failing. You're finally giving yourself space to notice what has been happening internally. 13. Write the thought down when thoughts keep repeating. Take them out of your head and put them on paper. Write, what am I worried about? What am I afraid will happen? What evidence do I have? What is actually within my control? What is the next action I can take? What can I let go of for now? Writing transforms a vague mental storm into something visible. Sometimes you'll discover that the problem is smaller than the story your mind created around it. And sometimes you'll discover that there really is something you need to do. Either way, clarity improves. 14. Don't turn self-awareness into self-attack. There is another trap. You notice that you're overthinking and immediately criticize yourself. Why am I like this? Why can't I be normal? Why am I so weak? Now you're creating another layer of suffering. Instead, practice a more compassionate response. My mind is struggling right now. I don't have to solve everything immediately. Self-compassion isn't weakness. It reduces the unnecessary battle you're having with yourself. You can take responsibility for your behavior without hating yourself for having difficult thoughts. 15. What mental peace really means. Mental peace doesn't mean you'll never feel anxious again. It doesn't mean you'll never worry. It doesn't mean your mind will become permanently silent. Life will continue to bring uncertainty, disappointment, pressure, and difficult decisions. Peace means learning that these experiences don't have to control you. A peaceful mind can experience fear without immediately obeying fear. It can experience uncertainty without demanding immediate answers. It can experience sadness without believing that sadness will last forever. It can experience a thought without treating that thought as reality. That is a much deeper definition of peace. 16. A simple daily practice. If you want to begin today, try this 5-step practice. Step 1. Pause when you notice overthinking. Stop whatever you're doing for a moment. Take a slow breath. Step 2. Name it. Say, I'm caught in an overthinking loop. Step 3. Separate thought from fact. Ask, do I know this, or am I predicting it? Step 4. Find your control. Ask, what is one thing I can actually do? Step 5. Return to the present. Take that action, or consciously let the thought go if there is nothing useful to do right now. Repeat this process. You don't need to win every battle with your mind. You simply need to become better at recognizing when the battle isn't worth fighting. Final message, you don't need to switch your brain off. Perhaps the question isn't, how do I switch my brain off? Perhaps the better question is, how do I stop being controlled by everything my brain says? You cannot prevent every thought. You cannot eliminate every worry. You cannot control every outcome. But you can learn to observe your thoughts. You can question them. You can choose your response. You can return to the present. And you can stop demanding certainty from a life that will always contain some uncertainty. The mind may never become completely silent, but it can become quieter. Not because you fought every thought into submission, but because you stopped giving every thought your attention. You don't need an empty mind to find peace. You need a mind that knows what deserves your attention and what doesn't. And perhaps that's where real mental freedom begins. Overthinking and Mental Peace Part 2. Training the Mind to Become Quiet. Premium 15-minute YouTube book summary. Opening. What if peace isn't about stopping thoughts? You may have tried everything. You tell yourself, stop thinking. Don't worry. Forget about it. Just relax. But the harder you try to force your mind into silence, the more thoughts seem to appear. One thought becomes 5. 5 become 20. And suddenly you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., analyzing a conversation from 3 days ago. But here's the deeper truth. The goal isn't to stop your mind from thinking. The goal is to stop being dragged around by every thought your mind produces. Mental peace is not a completely silent mind. It's a mind that has learned where to place its attention. 1. Your attention is your mental currency every day. Your attention is being pulled in different directions. Notifications want it. Social media wants it. Other people's opinions want it. Your fears want it. Your memories want it. Your future plans want it. But attention is limited. Whatever repeatedly receives your attention becomes psychologically important. This is why constantly checking problems can make them feel bigger. You may think, I keep thinking about this because it's important. But sometimes the opposite is happening. It feels important because you keep thinking about it. This creates a cycle. Thought, attention, emotional reaction, more thought, more attention. Breaking that cycle begins with learning to redirect attention. 2. Don't believe everything your mind says. Your brain generates possibilities constantly. Some are useful. Some are completely irrational. Some are memories. Some are predictions. Some are fears disguised as facts. Imagine your mind says, they're ignoring me because they don't like me. Before believing it, ask, what evidence do I actually have? Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they didn't see the message. Maybe something else is happening. The mind often fills missing information with the explanation that matches your current emotional state. When you're anxious, neutral situations can feel threatening. That's why learning to question your thoughts is so important. 3. The worst-case scenario trap. Overthinking often starts with a small possibility. What if I fail? Then the mind builds a story. If I fail, everything will be ruined. Everyone will judge me. I'll never recover. My future will be destroyed. Notice what happened. Possibility became a prediction. The prediction became a certainty. And the certainty created fear. When this happens, stop and ask, what is the actual probability? Then ask, if it did happen, what could I realistically do? This changes the brain from catastrophic thinking to problem solving. You don't need to convince yourself that everything will be perfect. You simply need to remind yourself, even if something goes wrong, I can respond. 4. Stop rehearsing conversations. One of the most common forms of overthinking is replaying conversations. You think about what someone said, then what you said, then what you should have said, then what they might have meant, then what you might say next time. This can continue for hours. But unless there is something you genuinely need to communicate, the conversation is already over. Your brain is attempting to rewrite the past through imagination. Instead, ask, is there an action I need to take? If yes, take it. If no, allow the conversation to remain finished. Not every interaction needs a perfect interpretation. Sometimes, I don't know exactly what they meant, is a perfectly acceptable answer. 5. Give your worries a place to go. Trying to suppress worry doesn't always work. Instead, schedule time for it. Choose a short period during the day, perhaps 15 minutes, to write down your worries. During that time, examine them. What is the problem? What can you control? What action is possible? What needs acceptance? Then close the notebook. If the thought returns later, tell yourself, I've already given this thought time. I'll return to it during my scheduled thinking period. This teaches your brain that every thought doesn't deserve immediate attention. 6. The power of the present moment. Overthinking usually lives somewhere other than the present. The past says, remember what happened. The future says, imagine what might happen. Peace says, what is happening right now? Look around. Where are you? What can you see? What can you hear? What are your hands touching? How does your breathing feel? These simple observations bring attention back from imagination into reality. The present moment may not solve your entire life, but it is the only place where you can actually do anything. 7. Build a mental reset routine when your mind becomes overloaded. Create a simple reset. Step away from the screen. Take several slow breaths. Drink some water. Walk for 10 minutes. Write down what's bothering you. Choose one next action. Then return to your day. The purpose isn't to escape your problems. It's to reduce the mental noise enough to respond intelligently. Sometimes you don't need another hour of thinking. You need 10 minutes of distance. 8. Learn the difference between responsibility and control. You are responsible for your actions, but you aren't responsible for controlling everything. You can prepare for an exam. You cannot control exactly what questions appear. You can communicate respectfully. You cannot control how another person interprets your words. You can work hard. You cannot guarantee the exact outcome. Understanding this difference creates enormous mental freedom. Responsibility asks, what can I do? Overthinking asks, how can I control everything? Choose responsibility. Let go of the impossible demand for total control. 9. Protect your mind before sleep. Nighttime can become the perfect environment for overthinking. The world becomes quiet. Your responsibilities are still unresolved. Your phone is beside you, and suddenly your mind begins reviewing everything. Create a transition between the day and sleep. Reduce stimulating content. Put your phone away. Write down unfinished tasks. Write down tomorrow's priorities. Tell yourself, I don't need to solve tomorrow tonight. Your brain needs permission to stop working. 10. Don't make every emotion a problem. Sometimes we create additional suffering by asking, why am I still sad? Why am I anxious? Why am I feeling like this? Why can't I just be happy? But emotions aren't always problems to eliminate. Sometimes they're experiences to allow. You can feel nervous and continue. You can feel sad and continue. You can feel uncertain and continue. You don't have to achieve perfect emotional comfort before taking the next step. Emotional strength is not feeling good all the time. It's being able to function while uncomfortable emotions are present. 11. Your life becomes what you repeatedly practice. If you repeatedly practice worrying, your mind becomes very good at worrying. If you repeatedly practice checking your phone, checking becomes automatic. If you repeatedly practice noticing thoughts without reacting, observation becomes easier. Your brain learns through repetition. This means mental peace isn't one dramatic breakthrough. It's a collection of small repetitions. Pause, observe, question, choose, return, again and again. Over time, this becomes a new mental pattern. 12. Replace what if with what now. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if something goes wrong? What if I regret this? The phrase what if can generate endless possibilities. Try replacing it with what now? What can I do now? What matters now? What is within my control now? What is the next step now? This simple shift moves your attention from hypothetical futures to practical action. And action often reduces the helplessness that fuels overthinking. 13. Peace requires boundaries. Sometimes overthinking isn't only happening inside your head. Your environment may be contributing to it. Constantly consuming negative content. Talking to people who repeatedly create drama. Checking other people's lives. Comparing yourself. Being available to everyone at every moment. These behaviors create mental noise. Peace sometimes requires saying, I don't need to know everything. I don't need to respond immediately. I don't need everyone's approval. I don't need to participate in every argument. Boundaries are not walls against life. They are filters for attention. 14. Stop comparing. Your timeline. Comparison is another powerful generator of anxiety. Someone else gets a job. Someone gets married. Someone becomes financially successful. Someone travels. Someone seems happier. And your mind asks, why am I behind? But you're comparing your complete internal experience with someone else's visible highlights. You don't know their struggles. You don't know their fears. You don't know what happens when the camera is off. Your life isn't late simply because someone else's life moved faster in one area. Different lives have different timelines. Your responsibility is not to win someone else's race. It's to build your own life. 15. A better definition of success. Many people believe success means finally reaching a point where nothing worries them. But life doesn't work that way. New achievements bring new responsibilities. New opportunities bring new uncertainty. A successful person can still experience anxiety. The deeper form of success is developing the ability to return to yourself. Something happens. You become upset. You pause. You process it. You respond. You continue. That ability to return is strength. 16. The 60-second mental reset when you feel trapped inside your thoughts. Try this. First, stop. Second, take a slow breath. Third, name the emotion. I'm anxious. Fourth, identify the thought. I'm imagining that something will go wrong. Fifth, ask, is this a fact, a possibility, or a fear? Sixth, ask, what can I do right now? Then do one small useful thing. The goal isn't to eliminate the emotion. The goal is to prevent the emotion from taking over the steering wheel. 17. The deepest lesson, perhaps the biggest lesson, is this. You don't have to solve every thought. Some thoughts require action. Some require reflection. Some require acceptance. And some simply require no response. Imagine your mind as a busy room. You don't need to argue with every person who speaks. You don't need to answer every sentence. You don't need to follow every conversation. You can simply notice the noise and choose where to place your attention. That is the beginning of mental freedom. Final chapter. Peace is a practice. Your mind may never become completely quiet. There will be difficult days. There will be uncertainty. There will be mistakes. There will be nights when your thoughts return. Don't interpret those moments as failure. Mental peace isn't something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you practice. Every time you notice a thought without immediately believing it, every time you choose action instead of endless analysis, every time you accept what you cannot control, every time you return from the past to the present, every time you choose rest instead of another hour of worrying, you are training your mind. And eventually, you may discover something important. Peace wasn't waiting for you after you solved every problem. Peace was available in the way you learned to meet your problems. So the next time your mind asks, what if everything goes wrong? Pause, breathe, and ask, what can I do right now? Then return to your life. Because you don't need to control every thought to live peacefully. You only need to stop letting every thought control you.